Speaking moistly, keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our usual Tuesday afternoon edition of Speaking Moistly. With me, as usual, on Twitter and on Zoom. Greg, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Mark. Merry Christmas. I
Merry
see you.
Christmas.
I see you
Yeah.
got your Santa's sack with you there.
Yep. As always, every year. It just
Good.
it's excellent. It's wonderful. Yeah. No, Christmas was great. How about you?
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. I was able to avoid the storm. I was able to not be on the road or have to
Oh my
travel at all.
gosh,
So,
we
did you experience any of the storm?
I experienced the media about the storm. We didn't even talk about the storm of the century. We're going to get derailed by that. Maybe we should come back and talk about the messaging around the storm of the century. It was pretty wild, like everything they said. I don't know that it was that bad. It was bad, but I would put it on par with every other snowstorm. You get a bad snowstorm every year.
It was
Is
pretty
it
bad.
that much worse? Yeah,
It
you think?
was pretty bad. A lot of the 401 was like closed, which is pretty
Well,
wild.
I think see,
And
but I
I
think that
think I think what made a difference was how long it was, and also the wind. I think kind of adds an interesting element. Like rarely, sure, we've had blizzards, but like this was like a blizzard and a lot of wind, like a crazy like hurricane winds as well, which I think kind of adds, and that's a different element to it because it made a lot of snow drifts. So it kind of
yeah,
made
there was a lot of
things like
snowdrifts
very
here too.
unpredictable. Um, and yeah, I think for sure the media obviously plays up the storm, but like it was something
Well, I just thought
noteworthy.
it
It's
was noteworthy to me when on Monday I was seeing news about it being a storm of significance. And I thought, okay,
mm,
like
hmm
maybe you see this big moisture thing coming up, but I just thought the prep work on it, because I used to work in schools and nobody pays more attention to the weather. Let me tell you right now,
hmm
if you want to know about weather in the wintertime, nobody knows more about the weather in the wintertime than Southern Ontario teachers. They know about if there's going to be a storm. And if it's 5 days out and they're predicting it's going to be a Friday thing, they're like, buddy, it's going to be a snow day. I'm not coming to work on Friday. And they talk about it. And hearing on Monday about Friday, that's suspicious. You didn't used to hear about that. That's what stood out to me.
Okay.
Let's get to it though. Let's get to the real stuff, the meaty stuff.
Is Kwanzaa
The
real?
war on Christmas. Is Kwanzaa real? Why are we talking about Kwanzaa? What does Kwanzaa have to do with anything? I noticed in my show today that Canada Heritage, the blue checkmark Canadian Heritage Twitter account, posted Merry Christmas on the 24th. There was no post on the 25th whatsoever, and on the 26th they posted Happy Kwanzaa, and the Happy Kwanzaa tweet had an image, a graphic, right? It was a very nice graphic, I guess. And the Christmas tweet didn't have a graphic. It had Ahmed Hassan and doing a little 2-minute video. And I'm not necessarily trying to compare, but if you're doing a Christmas tweet, don't you do it on Christmas Day, not the day before?
Mhm.
Christmas Eve is not Christmas Day. It was posted on
Okay,
the
okay. Well,
24th.
what's more Christmassy than Ahmed Hassan, our former
Ahmed Hassan, he
immigration
wasn't
minister?
even wearing a Christmas hat.
Yeah,
He was in a suit.
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
He said Merry Christmas though, which I didn't expect. Did you see Miss Tam and Mrs. Claus? Did you watch any of that video? Could
Oh
you get
my
through any of that
God. Oh
video?
my
I
God,
saw
dude.
I saw that you did a video and there was that in the back, like the Mrs. Claus. She sounded to me like Roseanne's drunk Aunt
Hello,
Jackie.
Mrs. Tam. Hello, Mrs. Tam. What is this? Who is this for? That was so messed up
and
because
and then when
it's
when
supposed
they
to be for
connected,
kids, right? It's supposed to be
right?
for
Who's the audience?
but it's like you're
Yeah.
making jokes about yoga and CrossFit and stuff. Like this is humor for grown-ups. So it's essentially like coaching the parents to further indoctrinate their children. And who check the list? Oh, are you fully protected? It's like
Yeah, that was
this
that was a weird
this
thing.
dystopian reality sucks.
When they connected, when the I don't know, when Dr. Tam connected with the North Pole, there was a ho ho ho, and I thought it was the weirdest thing because like, who's ho ho hoing? Is Santa like getting out of Dodge? He's like, oh, I don't want to talk to this guy. Like I'm not sure.
You've watched it too many times. It sounds like you watched it twice, which is way
Two
too
is
many
more than
times, dude.
enough. I
Yeah,
was like,
way
what
too
is
many
that? But I
times.
didn't want to listen to it a third
And
time to disseminate it anymore.
speaking of just crude, tasteless government propaganda, did you see the one from Omar Agabra?
Yes.
and it was he's coming. There's like this whole thing with like Justin Trudeau on the phone. Like
Yeah.
these
It was like a
guys,
Jason Bourne thing. We had
it's
Via Rail trains derailed on the 24th, people stranded on a train car for 12 plus hours on
yeah.
Christmas,
Hmm.
or some semblance of Christmas, according to Ahmed Hassan, right? December 24th
Hmm.
to December 26th. There were
It
no trains that could go.
it
And
pisses it pisses me off because you juxtapose that with a normie who doesn't know anything about Canadian politics, and they'll be like, "Man, why are you criticizing these guys? Like they're just doing their best." And it's like, no, they're busy making silly propaganda
yeah,
videos that me
they're
and
not
you
doing their
would have
best.
made in like drama class in high school. Like, what do you mean
Right.
they're doing their best? They're wasting our fucking time and money, man.
Yeah.
Like they're
Well,
not
and
doing their
like
jobs. It's just
I don't think that it's algebra's fault that a snowstorm hit, or that a train went when maybe it shouldn't have gone, or that a branch hit it and it was derailed. I don't think that any of that is his fault.
sure.
But when you've got a situation where there's a bunch of Canadians who are stuck on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day on a train in nightmare situation, whatever, then you move heaven and earth as the transport minister to get that situation fixed. ASAP, you call in favors, you do what you can to get those people home, to get that thing moving, to do what you can to fix the problem, I think. But what happened was basically they said, what happened here? Climate change. And I
Hmm.
thought that's they to me, they take our system to the brink with underfunding it, understaffing it, putting people in a situation that is potentially dangerous. Look at our healthcare. And then when something inevitably goes wrong, because if something will go wrong in putting that situation, they say, "Oh, look, the problem is unvaccinated people. The problem is climate change. The problem is truckers," right? And it's almost predictable, except that when you point it out to somebody who is maybe got rose-colored glasses on for a government they think is working for them, they see, well, why are you being critical? They're just doing what they can. They're not, though. While it's not algebra's fault that all of these things happened, it is his fault that all of these systems are pushed to the brink and nothing's been fixed. And it's Christmas Eve and this disaster happens. And he sits there and puts this crappy video out that cost us more money than it's worth. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really kind of it should be concerning to anyone. It's like why does Justin Trudeau have the time to throw in a couple shots for a video like that? Like, why is that? Like, how is
You
that
have
at
to wonder.
all on the priority list? And I think the answer is it's optics, because by making propaganda videos like that to their base, to the Trudeau liberal, indoctrinated cult base, it makes us the villains because it's like, hey guys, they're just making a cutesy Santa video about Santa for kids. Like, why don't you back off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
But
they're just these sort of like harmless, completely inconsequential, just public servants who are just trying to do their best. It all thrives upon this total lie that I think a lot of normies believe, that like, Canadian politics is harmless. It's like wallpaper. It's just something in the background, right?
they're making some pretty substantial changes about what can be said on the internet, who's in charge of what can be said on the internet, CRTC, and all this stuff. They're trying
It's
to make it.
wallpaper. It's wallpaper, Mark. It's
Yeah.
nothing. It's
But
pointless.
see,
Like
I think it's more than
I follow American politics because that affects me more. That's what these
oh,
people
there's a
still
lot of
think.
Canadian. I used to like following American politics too, but then I realized that who was it? I think it was Johnny Bravo on a Joe Rogan one day was talking about how it's if you're not for sports, politics is just like sports. Oh, blue team, oh, red team, blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
And he's like, you get all the stats. He's like, you can rhyme things off. How Johnny Bravo fucking talks like that. And I realized I was like, oh man, but what I really like is how hypocritical and silly the whole thing is. It's like a Benny Hill episode, because when our politicians do something, it's like, here's this person, here's their job, and here's what they did, and here's what they're ruining through doing their, like, here's this Rhodes Scholar reporter who happens to be our finance minister. That right there's the joke. That's funny to me, right? Like, so that's why I do my job, like, or my job. That's why I do what I do here. Because I think it's so funny that um, American politics have people who are pointing this out to other people, right? But Canadian politics is so dry. You're right. A lot of people look at it like it's drying wallpaper, but I look at it like it's freaking hilarious, because it is hilarious. The
Yeah, and
incompetence is
it's
hilarious.
Yeah, and it's actually, it's not that the politics is dry. The politics is actually quite exciting. The difference is the media is dry. The news media is boring. The way they cover it is not exciting. They're not scathingly critical. They
They're
don't
very
explode scandals. They don't do like they're like watch CBC and compare it to CNN. Watch CTV News, compare it to MSNBC. Completely different worlds. One of them is making your blood pressure skyrocket. The other one is putting you to sleep. Canadian news puts you to sleep. Everything's fine. Don't worry. Everything's fine. Don't worry.
maybe there's an
The only time you
opportunity
get
there.
excited, is when they're talking about the states. Like that's the only time you get excited during a Canadian newscast.
Well, yeah, but that's
Anything
because
that's Canadian is like, oh yeah, the politics, wallpaper. Yeah, he might have worn blackface. He might have, broke ethics violations, but like we're just gonna literally explain that away in a sentence or two and then continue on with the news
if
about some
Scott
lost
Bryson
puppy.
hadn't resigned, oh
It's
shucks.
crazy, man. It's crazy.
It
And that's
is.
seriously what it comes down to is, American news is very, very good at being entertaining. It's very, very good at getting people excited and really exploding details and little political things and taking one quote and exploding it into like a whole like week long news cycle. They especially did that with Trump. But yeah, with the Canadian news, it'll lull you to sleep. It'll lull you
Yeah.
to sleep specifically when it's talking about politics. And I think that's by design.
Yeah, yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong. Maybe, and I was saying maybe there's an opportunity to explore there where we could, whoever could do a more Americanized style of
Well, I mean,
news.
there is Rebel News and
I think, but
Rebel
they're
News.
not like that. It's not the same. It's not the same. I don't get
It's
the
a
same
version.
American
It's a
feel.
version of that where it's much more excitable. It gets you excited. It kind of gets you angry and frustrated and fearful. I think to the point where it's like it's almost, I don't want to criticize Rebel News, but sometimes it's like, is this necessarily productive or is this just kind of getting me angry? You know what I mean? Like
Well, right.
the
And I'm not trying to say be sensational like American news, but be entertaining like American news, maybe.
mm,
And entertaining, not like, I think probably the story's entertaining enough if you put the right lens on it, right? I don't know,
right.
for me anyway.
Hmm.
But
We need to talk about
Kwanzaa,
Kwanzaa. Yeah,
yeah,
we
I
need
was
to talk
gonna say,
about
let's get back
Kwanzaa,
to
guys.
Kwanzaa because we're getting far away from it. And I want
Well,
to kind of put the nose on it.
can I introduce this?
Do it.
So before we started the show, um Mark is like, Kwanzaa is made up. It was made up in the 60s. And I'm like, that's no way
I
that's
think I
true.
said 70s. I think I said
You
70s
said
to be
70s.
fair.
And but sure enough, we Googled it and some black activist came up with it
Oh, I
in
got it here.
the
Do you want me to
60s.
read it?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay,
I
so
didn't know this and I find this fascinating.
yeah, so Kwanzaa is fundamentally American an American person named Milana Kerrigan. I'm gonna say that's not the right way to say it.
It was invented by an American?
Yeah, an American
Wow.
person named Mulana
So it wasn't even invented in
Kerrigan.
Africa. It wasn't even invented
I
in
think it
Africa.
was invented in Africa after the Watts riots. So this
Oh,
person,
okay.
the Watts riots, took place in the Watts neighborhood and its surrounding areas of Los Angeles. So, okay, in response to riots in Los Angeles in 1965, this American created Kwanzaa in 1966 as a specifically African American holiday. Karenga, that's the, yeah, said his goal was to, quote, give Blacks an alternative to the existing holiday of Christmas and to give Blacks an opportunity to celebrate themselves and their history rather than simply imitate the practice of the dominant society. For Kingera, I'm saying that wrong, Karenga, that's it, a major figure in the Black Power movement of the 1960s and 70s, the creation of such holidays also underscored the essential premise that, quote, you must have a cultural revolution before the violent revolution. The cultural revolution gives identity, purpose, and direction.
Hmm.
So when I say it was
So it's
kind of made
from
up, like
LA. Some
it, yeah, like
activist in LA made it up.
it would be like celebrating Festivus. It would be like in the 2070s saying, happy Festivus, everybody. I hope everybody had a good wrestling
Well,
match. And then
I,
watching it like on YouTube and watching people do it and like, oh, the wrestling match for Festivus was really great this year.
well, knowing what you just shared there now, it certainly reminds me of the sort of what's the word? The kind of like cheap cop out of like Black History Month. It's like we're gonna remember Black History just for this month, and that's all we're gonna like talk about this month is
Well,
Black History,
I think that it cheapens.
and similarly, it's like, hey, let's make Ariel black. It's this kind
Yeah.
of thing where it's like you're trying to copy something from like, I don't know, a traditionally European, or like, something that's with white people, and you're trying to like copy it in a way that's like not original. And I'm sorry, like they even have a thing that looks exactly like a menorah to do with the Kwanzaa,
Yeah,
It's like, come on,
that's what
guys.
the graphic is. If you go to the
Yeah.
Canadian Heritage Twitter website, you can see the graphic of
But
the Kwanzaa thing.
have they implemented something to do with candles? Like, that's what I'm curious about.
I don't know I don't know the details of the Kwanzaa celebration. After I found out that the creator of Kwanzaa was
The seven
highly a
candles,
major figure in the
the
Black Power
seven
movement, I stopped
candles
paying
of
attention.
the seven candles of Kwanzaa correspond with the seven principles of African heritage, and these
Which are
candles help keep those ideas ever present. Each candle features one of the seven principles: Umoja, Kujichagulia, Ujima, Ujama, Nia, Kumba, and Imani.
cool.
So now you know.
So after the LA riots, this American dude came up with this.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Festivus, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Light your candles. Yes.
I mean,
It's
it's not. It's hey, like Islam is like the newest of the Abrahamic religions, and they've done pretty well for themselves. Like, this is
okay.
like
Well,
the newest of the Christmas times holiday celebrations. Who knows? Maybe it'll be maybe it'll
no,
surge in popularity. Maybe it'll be
the
mandated
reason,
to celebrate Kwanzaa by the year 2026 when Trudeau is reelected.
yeah,
Mandated
no more
Kwanzaa.
Thanksgiving,
You never
but
know where it's gonna go, Mark.
you don't.
Okay.
So no more Thanksgiving, but instead we have Truth and Reconciliation Day. No more Christmas, but instead we have Kwanzaa. Christmas
Correct.
is a celebration, and I just want to make sure that like it's one of those things that is known but not really known. On the 21st of December, that's the winter solstice. That's the shortest day of the year. The sun rises to the same level for the next 3 days. The sun hangs in the sky for 3 days, right? And then on the 25th, the sun is reborn and rises higher again, signifying that spring will return. The sun's going to start his journey back, type deal, and or whatever you want to believe. And that's why we celebrate Christmas Day, right? Man will live forevermore. You know the ecliptic, the video of the different
This is
positions in the sky.
blasphemous. It's because of Jesus Christ being born. I don't want to hear this blasphemy anymore, Mark. This whole thing that is
That's
just based on
the
that is
King
just
of Kings
based
is the
on the sun
sun.
and the stars and all this. I know
Well, the
you've told me
stars.
this before,
Yeah,
and
we'll talk about it later.
there's definitely
I think that
legitimacy,
it's a
but it's also Christ is king, and there's also that whole thing.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, tradition. There's been a long tradition of celebrating Christmas, etc. And it's I think it's such an ingrained tradition, such been celebrated such a long time that it would be difficult to get people to stop. So you just replace it, like in Indiana Jones when he's got that bag, and you're like, right,
it's
you
all
know,
real. It's all real. You're just coping with some sort of
what's real?
science stuff.
What is
Jesus Christ is real, and he
what does
died and he was
real mean?
resurrected, dude. That's all. It's
So
all real.
if resurrection is real, then we've all been here before.
Oh my god, dude! Are
Oh,
we really gonna have this
existential.
like
No, we're not going to get it.
atheism
No,
versus
no,
Christian debate right now? Is that what you want to do?
no. I don't think. No. I don't think there is. Well, no, I don't want to get into that kind of
Are
debate.
you also going to tell me that life came from a hot wet rock, and that's how life
No, I don't
began,
think
from a
that. No,
hot
no,
wet
no.
rock, and then
Well, somebody
then
used the
DNA got
analogy.
created?
Yeah, somebody used the analogy of like if you were walking through a forest and you saw a Rolls Royce in the forest, you wouldn't think to yourself, "Oh my goodness, this Rolls Royce had been made by the forest here." You would think like somebody put this Rolls Royce in here. Somebody's thought about putting the steering wheel here. It's not covered in trees or anything like that. This is
Sure.
very
Okay.
purposeful, right?
Okay.
Like this
Yeah.
this pedal here makes this thing go, and I turn this and it
Yeah.
turns the
Yeah.
wheels. Somebody's thought about this.
Uh-huh.
I think, right? Like there's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
thought that goes into this and not more than just an accident. And what do explosions do, right? Explosions don't usually create a whole bunch of stuff, right? A big mess, maybe, but not like, oh, look at the magic of this explosion, right? Like that's not how that works. Not usually, right?
No,
Big
not
bang.
usually. Not usually.
Yeah, it's
So
weird.
are you a Christian or not?
Uh, I this is a Christian. I was raised as a Christian. Yeah, I would say that I was a Christian. Yeah.
You were a Christian.
Well, I would say that I am. I would say I'm probably a very poor, like I'm not a practicing Christian. Who can go to church? I mean, all the churches are really woke, right? All the churches are espousing the same
Have you looked for more
kind of woke. Yes, I
basements?
used to. Yeah, I used
Really?
to proctor. I used to proctor sermons for all the churches around. but
Oh wow.
it would usually usually by the 10th minute, I would be like, ooh, nope. And then I ran out of churches. And there was one that I got through a full one, and I was like, that's pretty good. And then the other priest came through, and I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, shiza. So that was no good. But yeah, I mean, I looked for a while there, and it just didn't work out. And then COVID hit, and I was like, oh, cheapers creepers.
I know you've dealt with in your past, like working with kids and this sort of thing. What comes to mind whenever people kind of wholesale dismiss Christianity or Catholicism because they're like, they're a bunch of they diddle kids, the priests diddle kids, so like all of Christianity and Catholicism is just like child abuse and grooming. Have you heard this argument before?
Yeah, I've
What
heard that argument. Yeah, well, I mean, there's something to be said. Like, I would be hesitant. The Vatican is obviously, there's issues, the wokeness aside. So I found wokeness and changes in local churches recently, recently being the last 5 years. But I've talked to people who are very, very religious and would go, people who are medium high up in the church, and the wokeness in the church has either reduced their ability to impact or chase them out of there entirely. Um, some conversations with priests have gone to the point where people don't want to go back. Like, it's common to invite your priest over for dinner type deal, like come over for dinner and blah, blah, blah.
hmm hmm
So after a night like that, it's like, oh, like we don't see eye to eye. And if you're talking about trusting um, the advice of somebody specifically, like that's the difficult thing to do, right? Necessarily. And you want to make sure that you trust this person and maybe are aligned with them, right? So I don't know. It's one of those things that
no.
we're not, I don't think modern people are coached very well um, in a spiritual direction, one
Sense.
way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even within a church situation, I think that there are people who are trying, and I think that there are people who are genuine. In anything, you get people who are good eggs and bad eggs, or whatever, however you want to do it. Uh, the the history of the Vatican Church and child exploitation and child pedophilia, et cetera, et cetera. I would point to the human trafficking, Balenciaga. Like there's a whole bunch of there's a history of this, and it's bigger than the Catholic Church necessarily. I think on the whole, church is about community that cares about you, um, and something for you to invest in that's bigger than just your family. It gives you a connection that everybody's kind of on the same moral stance, right? We all agree at least on this, and then you can kind of build relationships based on that. That's kind of the power of a church, right? But now the church has been turned into something that is, well, that it isn't supposed to be. I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't trust. I don't
right.
trust.
So what would you say to somebody though who has this like they basically wholesale dismiss this entire religion
We're taught to dismiss
site?
it. If you say to
No,
somebody,
no,
I'm
but
Christian,
if you like are confronted with somebody who says this, what would you say to them in the rare scenario that they're actually open-minded?
well, they want me to convince them that it's the right path or something like that.
They basically say, oh, like nothing ever good came of Christianity, or it's all just an excuse to diddle kids.
Well, I would say, like that's such a deep conversation. There's such a deep conversation that's like I don't know that I would be able, and I don't know that you could really change somebody's mind if they were that kind of um, decisive about it, if that makes sense. If they were just like completely dismissive of it and like, oh, the whole thing is just made up to kids. I know people who think it was an early form of government, early form of power. Probably that there's truth in all of that. Like there's a reason that the Vatican and the woke stuff taking hold in the church is a bad thing because it changes the conversation, and people don't trust that church, and they don't think, or some people don't, and they don't want, and some people wouldn't want to go, right? And so the nature of it changes, but it's going to change with every generation because the people change. I mean, it's not that long ago that it would be unheard of for Catholic schools to raise a rainbow flag. And then they went
Right.
in Waterloo and they made the Mennonites raise the rainbow flag against everyone's wishes.
Right. But you're saying like for this generation, for your generation, it's kind of like a lost cause. Like there's no point in even trying to defend it at this point.
If you go and tell somebody that you're Christian
Yeah.
and you're serious about it,
Hmm.
They don't want to hear from you at all. It's like telling somebody that you're vegan, I think. Really. And I'm not trying to
Wow.
like I really no, I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. I hope you don't take that as me being mean. I'm
No,
just trying to
I'm
say that
curious. I'm curious, kind of like what what
it's
it's like
kind
over
of
there in your neighborhood. I guess that's wild.
yeah, well, I mean, like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I haven't tried hard enough or anything like that. But it seems like uh, a belief in an honest belief in God seems not to be within the realm of possibility or within the realm of acceptability for people my age. It seems, or maybe not all people my age, people raised in the 1980s or something like that. Like I mentioned something to my brother talking about God, um, and he and not meaning to be mean to my brother or anything like that, but he laughed, and I was like, oh, okay, right, not ready for a serious conversation on that. I'm not going to waste my time on something like that, right? And maybe I overgeneralized, right? But I don't talk to that many people, so maybe I'm wrong. But it seems like most people aren't open to the idea that I think more people are open to the idea of somebody creating a simulation for humanity somehow, but they're not open to, and I think that God and a simulation are exactly the same thing. If you say, oh yeah, it's a simulation, then you are saying there's some kind of higher power that put thought into this that created this, right? That's fundamentally, I think, what that means, isn't it? No, you don't think so? Am I wrong?
I think there's something that takes away that like the sacredness of our reality and our existence when you say it's a simulation. Because I
No,
think
I
it's very
know,
I
but
think it's,
that makes it palatable for people in our generation because they don't want to think of
yeah, but
spiritual. We haven't been
it's
taught to be
still
spiritual.
but it's but the reason I don't like the whole simulation thing is it's still immoral. There's still no moral gravity to that sort of like perception of reality. To say we're just in a simulation, it's like, oh, it's just a video game anyways. I might as well go GTA. I might as well, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter. It's just a simulation that some guy made. There's no moral gravity to that. I don't know, but hey, a lot of what you're saying, I certainly have experienced. I'm just kind of trying to be devil's advocate to kind of like
yeah,
really
no,
push
certainly,
and push and
I
see
mean,
how you're feeling about that, because you're right. I've started even with some of my own family members. I've brought up like, hey, like let's say grace before dinner, and like the reactions I get
yeah, right, isn't that
are
funny?
almost like hissing, like like we don't want to
Yeah,
do grace, and it's like, damn.
yeah, we're
And
gonna
I
we're
think
gonna
it's really
go.
I think it's real sad in Canada though, because you know even the atheists, even the loser Antifa people, they're like, people are just like good people, and that's like good nature is just a thing that's always been there. And it's like,
If you can
you
redefine
you
good,
grew up you grew up around a lot of churches, and like if your parents weren't religious, their parents were probably religious. So it's like to say, like, they discount the osmosis of organized religion or Christianity over the years, and how it's probably strongly influenced our ancestors and the morality of your parents and the parents before them and the parents before them. I feel like that gets completely discounted. And all of a sudden, like in the era of shopping malls, it's like, oh no, we've always just been good people, and like that's the way it is. We don't need church to tell us what's right and wrong. Um, and I think it's
yeah,
foolish. I think it's
yeah,
foolish.
I think you're not wrong. Okay, we were going to talk about Made, and we were going to talk about the Twitter files. So
Uh-huh.
that was kind of a Made kind of deal conversation. Let's talk about the Twitter files. Have you read the Twitter files, the most recent ones, or no?
No, I haven't. More stuff that we already knew, though, right? Is it not?
Yeah, basically it's confirmation. So Elon Musk tweeted out that there would be more Twitter files next week, which is good news. Seems like there's some kind of end game in mind, more damaging,
Mhm.
explosive stuff. This was just a preview, but basically, um, the COVID, um, anybody who was against the CDC, it didn't matter what their medical credentials were, was being silenced by Twitter through the um, United States federal government. But for
Fact
me,
checkers.
yeah, well, right. I mean, it was FBI. They had back channels, and then Twitter was full of FBI agents and NSA agents and all sorts of different ones, just like Google is too. But Musk took over Twitter and is releasing all the files. Google and Facebook and all the other ones, they're all still in position. It's like terrorist cells, each one operates independently, but they're all working towards the same goal. Hail Hydra. You know what I'm saying? So they
Interesting.
keep they keep running even if one goes down, right? Twitter's down, but they've got the rest. It's diabolical. It's absolutely incredible. And it's so the Twitter files are the most up to date confirmation that everything we suspected was going on, it was going on.
And that's specific to the narrative of the virus.
Yeah,
That's the
COVID.
most it's the most recent one.
Yeah, that's the most recent one. Yeah, and they were suspending doctors and blah blah blah, all of those other people. It's not surprising, as you said. We are aware of what's going on, and we're aware of what was going on while it was going on. Now we've got proof. Do you think anything at all will come? We had proof that Justin Trudeau did not meet the legal threshold for invoking the Emergencies Act. We went through a show trial. Justin Trudeau came on the stand and he sat there and said he did not call Canadians names. And then I'm going to predict he's going to get away with it. So do you think that all of this information confirming everything we thought is going to result in anything meaningfully coming from this? Or do you think this is all going to be water under the bridge? And I'll see you in the digital gulag, comrade.
Yeah, that's a good question. I worry that I forget who said this or who I picked this up from, but the term they used is the polarization is nearly complete. Like the complete and utter polarization of our society and our reality is nearly complete, especially with like lockdowns and everything that's happened over the past few years. And what I mean by that is, we think, hey, these Twitter files are coming out, here comes the truth. But it's like it's only validating what we already knew to our side of the pole, right? Like if we're the South Pole and everyone who's indoctrinated is the North Pole, everyone on the South Pole is like, hey, oh my God, I told you. And then everyone on the North Pole doesn't hear about it because they're not going to cover it in the mainstream legacy media news. So they're not going to know about it. They're not going to hear about it. And they're going to think everything, they're still just going to think that that we're crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is it going to move anything? Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know. It's hard to say because I feel now I think there's truth to that the polarization is complete because I think the people who are on the North Pole, they have been so beaten down by propaganda over the past few years, especially that it's almost like they're pot committed. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of that term before, pot
Oh,
committed.
buddy. Yeah. I
Yeah,
used to play poker.
it's a poker term, and essentially it means that like the hand is going on, and as each time you go around, you put a little bit more into the pot,
Fishing for that
and
flesh.
yeah, and it's like at this point you've put so much into the pot that you're kind of like committed to like see it through, even if your hand sucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, but sometimes it makes sense. You're pot committed. If everybody's bluffing, maybe your high card wins.
yeah,
You
yeah,
gotta pay. You
exactly,
gotta pay to see it
exactly.
though.
If you can, yeah, exactly, you can hang around to see who has the highest cards, but
Usually ends up just costing you money.
yeah, yeah, but again, it also makes sense because it's like so much of your money is in there. It's like, man, I got to see this through. And yeah, I worry that people are in that situation where they're like, well, I'm going to look like a total jackass if I don't keep going around along with this propaganda. And I worry that that number's gotten so big. And then along with that, it's the people on the North Pole just being so kind of like demoralized on their own level, where it's like because a lot of people on the North Pole, I think, are not they're too like caught up in other things to actually reasonably kind of question the reality or kind of step out of where they are. And they've probably seen enough pieces of evidence or like, you know, their gut saying like something's off here, something's wrong, but I don't have the time or sort of energy to even find out why or what that is. So I'm just going to stay here on the North Pole because I'm unaffected. And I worry that the only time when people are actually going to like start to maybe move to the South Pole is when something horrible happens and they're like, holy shit, my reality is like falling apart. Oh my God, my close friend of mine has this horrible heart conditioner. They dropped dead for some reason. Holy fuck, I wonder why that happened.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, who knows? And the death is already higher than it was during COVID, and it doesn't seem to matter. The collapse of the healthcare system is happening in real time, and they still don't talk about bringing back
Yes,
the healthcare workers.
but like you don't hear it, you won't hear it in the news. Oh my God, a whole bunch of people got red pilled because this happened. Like the red pilling
That's
happens in
true.
silence, right? It happens behind the scenes. People get red pilled, they move to the South Pole. like in silence behind the scenes. You don't hear about this. You don't see this. And it's all those
Really?
little, it's all these little news stories. There's all these little details that really affect specific individual lives a lot. Like that's what I think moves the needle in terms of actually getting people red pilled to like wake up. I don't think there's, unfortunately, especially with legacy news, I doubt there's like that many big news items that actually like sway the conversation one way or another, especially because it's so controlled in Canada by, objectively funded by the government. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's pretty incredible. And so with these Twitter files, I'm interested to see if any releases will touch on Canada at all. And if they do you think that'll have any impact? It might drop the government. If it makes Justin look bad and Jagmeet look not so bad, it might drop the government. But if it makes Justin and Jagmeet look bad, then they're in it together, baby. 2025 or bust, because it's a long time.
I unfortunately, like, I think something on the Twitter files could be released in specifically for Canada, but I don't think it's going to change anything, man, because if something about the Twitter files were to change, something as major as the political parties in Canada, then Bill C-11 would have already done that. But enough people don't give a shit about the actual happenings on the internet in Canada because they're still watching legacy media. Like the fact that Bill C-11 has gone so far without much more noise and resistance and like frustration and anger and criticism is like, yeah, people are asleep here, like
Well, no,
definitely
because
asleep here,
it's
and they don't
even
understand
if
the internet.
even they don't understand the internet, but if even if you get upset, you're ignored. Like as somebody who regularly gets upset and fires off letters to people with postage and everything, um, if you get upset and you try to affect change, they sideline you as best as they can. It's incredible, but I've experienced it. I have a $47 million bill from public health for freedom of information request I made regarding who they asked about masking children, forcing children to mask 6 hours a day. They didn't ask anybody. But in order to find out, $47 million, please, because we have to redact it. It's pretty wild. Absolutely incredible.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's
We should
insane.
wrap this up though. Are we going to jump onto the Twitter thing too?
Yeah, we'll hop into the Twitter thing. If anybody wants to hop on and say a few things on anything we've talked about, then yeah, get ready to hop on in just a
So,
minute.
so what's the final conclusion with Kwanzaa? Is Kwanzaa real or like what's up with that?
Kwanzaa is real the same way
Real.
that Black History Month is real, I think.
Okay.
And it's like, I don't really think Black History Month is that real. It's kind of just like this kind of PR invented thing.
You know what I
Um,
meant to say? I think that
Also, how insulting is it that it's February, the shortest month of the year?
yeah, it's super, I mean, ridiculous, really. But I meant to say it's kind of if there are a lot of people who have black skin who have contributed to society in multiple ways all across different disciplines, from science to literature and beyond, and all in between as well. And so the whole idea of trying to teach history and saying we'll talk about the black people in February seems as weird to me as taking off Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben from the grocery stores. You know what's racist? Like,
Yeah.
let's get rid of these black people in the grocery stores. What?
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
It's definitely got the same energy. Like Kwanzaa definitely has the same energy. And it's too
Yeah.
bad too, because it's like, hey, we're black people. We're gonna celebrate Christmas or Christianity. It's like, no, we're not gonna do that because that's a white person thing. We're gonna celebrate Kwanzaa. And it's like,
And what gave that guy the right
what the heck? What the
to
heck is
totally
that?
undermine?
And it's like, it's something I made up, and these are the
Yeah,
African values. And it's like, all right, like
because of the LA riots
um
in 1965. Weird, man. Weird thing.
yeah.
Weird pastime, dude.
It's
Became a
just
big
weird
thing in
because
Canada
it's
after
like
2022.
it's saying that Christianity is white, and it's like is that even
But it's
true? Is
not.
that even
It's
yeah,
not.
it's
It's
not.
not
It's like,
though. Africa
so
is super Christian.
exactly.
Like it's really
Exactly.
Christian.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, so why is Christianity white according to, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, weird, weird. Because
Um
in the United States, Christianity is white. All right. Well, that's enough. That's enough of it. I think we definitively answered that question. Mission accomplished, sir.
one last thing, actually,
All right.
Kwanzaa, you made this thing that looks like a menorah, and it looks like you're appropriating Jewish culture a little bit, just a little bit,
Isn't the
just a little
candle
bit. I
black?
want to
Isn't the
say
candle black? It's a little bit of witchcraft too, right?
that's
Like that's
way too.
weird.
That's too far,
I mean, come on, guys.
Mark. You've
Come
gone
on.
too far. You need to
Oh, that was me going too
delete
far,
this
not the
recording
Kwanzaa people.
immediately. Delete this
Not the
recording.
Black Panther Kwanzaa guy who came up with Kwanzaa. He's not going too far. It's me. All right. Okay,
Black
that's enough.
candles, Mark. Really?
No, that was saying, isn't it? I think it is.
Thanks for
In the
watching,
meme, it's a black
everybody.
candle.
Thanks for
Yes, thanks for
watching.
watching. Where can they find you at?
Find me, Google me, Greg Wycliffe. I'm on the things, Instagram and the YouTube and Twitter and stuff.
I'm not. So you have to go to my website. Go to canadavolley.com to find my stuff, and not on YouTube because they don't like me there. And Rumble, you can find me. I think I'm checkmark there or something like that. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you again next week. Bam.